So in the trial of Chicago 7, I played Tom Hayden, who was an extraordinary man. Um, he was a young man born in Michigan. He had a rebellious spirit from an early age. He joined the fledgling SDS in the 60s, the Students for a Democratic Society, and he was one of the main authors of the Port Huron Statement, which was about finding a new shift in liberal thought and politics, and it became pretty important.
So I'm playing a man named Richard Schultz, who is an attorney on the prosecution side. Is a real man who was the real prosecutor of this trial. Schultz is a character who I think would say the American government is not flawless. It has a lot of flaws, but it's better than almost any of the other governments going.
He's almost a kind of Lenny Bruce comic. He's funny. He's not actually a comedian, but he's using humor to, get young people excited. And, he really actually changed himself to become the most appealing thing to get young people motivated to end the war. So that's part of the reason why he grew his hair. He realized that if he was going to get disaffected young people who, look like hippies to actually go and protest the war, he should start to look like them.
Growing up, I knew that Bobby Seale was one of the co-founders of the Black Panther Party. He's also very outspoken in Oakland. I'm not sure if I've seen him speak before, but it wouldn't be odd if I had. He does a lot of lectures, he used to do a lot of lectures at the colleges, Merritt College, very likely at my high school or elementary schools at some point growing up. And I know that he is a very charismatic figure and character, but also just a very important person in Oakland history and the community, in history of service.
I'm Judge Julius Hoffman, a 5'6" Jewish man. So it was absolutely right. He should get a 6'3" Italian to play him. He was an unqualified, corrupt, feelingless man, at least in what he presented in the court. And he had no interest in listening or in any way abiding by the law. He came in there determined to get these men into prison, and he succeeded.
Dave Dellinger was one of the seminal figures of the 20th century nonviolent protest movement in the United States. He was a Yale grad. He went to Oxford. He was highly educated from a privileged class and chose to reject all of that and get involved in nonviolent protests, both in terms of the civil rights movement and then later on the war movement.
Jerry, in this story, really is the militant, in a sense, and he certainly was. Jerry started out in Berkeley, laying down in front of the troop train, stopping the troop trains going to Oakland, and Jerry was a real, fiery radical, and Eldridge Cleaver, these guys, Jerry was right there on the front lines with all of that.
I play Rennie Davis. Member of the SDS, very intelligent and interesting guy, and Tom Hayden's right-hand man in Aaron's story.
Fred, he's basically here for Bobby throughout the film, but he, in life he took over the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party at 17, and in this movie we see him at 21, so he's fully moving and grooving and doing the work, and basically now that Bobby's on trial, he's here to kind of support him and just get him out and get justice for Bobby.
One of the things I love about this film is it doesn't give answers, really. Like the world was not solved by the resolution of how this trial ended, and some of the major issues with our political systems remain fragile and unworkable or seemingly unworkable, and a moment in the world in which where everyone is sort of standing there with bewilderment. The idea of continuing conversations seems vital to me, and that's what I love about what Aaron's done.
I would hope that when people see the film, that some of the divisions that have become so entrenched in our society have a light shown on them, and there's reason to talk about them.
It felt amazingly timely, the idea of justice hovering nearby but not actually exerting itself. And the purpose of the legal system and when it works and when it does not work. And obviously this is one of the great perversions of justice in modern American history.
It's a story from 1968, but it's definitely one that's a story from every day in America since the first day of this trial, up until right now. At the table read, Aaron said that we're telling a story. It's not a biopic. It's a story of an event from history, but we want it to be relevant for the audiences today, and I think it should be. I think it should encourage people to get out and to speak up and to really look at the state of our world, the state of our country, and to say that if we have a problem with something, that we should speak up and we should speak out loudly.
I hope people start saying, gee, we seem to have gone backwards a little bit, have we? How did we end up back in 1968 today? We don't want to do that again. The nature of protest and the fact that when you protest your government, it doesn't mean you're anti-American. Quite the opposite.
It's a scene towards the end of the film when Tom is being cross-examined by Kunstler, and there's a moment, and I asked him what his intention, or what I was meant to, how he wanted me to do that moment, and he said, "Hold on a minute. Let me take myself back to where I was when I wrote it." And it was this extraordinary thing. I've never had that access to a writer, in which you saw him go into his head and be in that place of where he was when he wrote that specific word, and that idea of that clarity is overwhelming. But the other thing that's amazing is he writes in a musical way, and sometimes you see him by the monitor. He's not watching the monitor. He's literally just listening, and he can hear instinctively when the thing is jazzing, when it's riffing, or when it's cooking, because he hears it in his ear, and it plays how he once imagined it.